As we move into autumn, the weather is turning cooler. The leaves are turning to red. The flowers are going to seed. The bushes are heavy with fruit and berries adorn the trees. We are turning towards the old one, the knowledge of death within us all. We sense that one day too, we will have to acknowledge death. Sometimes we can feel it, taste it, know it. It comes to us all, and at this time of year we start to turn inwards, towards weakness. There is no point in living in fear of death, for we know in our wisdom that it is inescapable. That lies ahead of us. What we feel now is the gentle turn towards something cooler and more refreshing. It is less intense than the summer heat, something more mellow, more introspective. The year is no longer in full bloom. The vigour of flowering is now behind us. We let go and we surrender. We can release our hold now that things have come to fruition. There is a little melancholy in autumn, but it is a beautiful melancholy like a sigh. This is where we find the old ones calling us. She is the ripening fruits. He is the mushrooms on the hills and in the dank woodlands. They are withered in the weathered trees before they turn brown and shed the last of their beauty and splendour. Before nature becomes bare, there's a small voice that calls to us to say goodbye. In times long gone, winter was a very difficult season, where the prospect of losing a loved one was very real. The old, the young, the vulnerable may be taken from us at any time in that cruel climate. The shortage of food may make survival problematic. In facing that turn towards the cold darkness, we had to be prepared for loss, and we had to be prepared to let go. But it is here that we find respect for our ancestors, for those who had gone before us and shaped us to be who we are. Those who had known a million winters and a million springs. This genetic memory still lingers in our psyche, and when we delve into that mind that we inherited, we may meet the old wise man and the bone mother herself. He is our ancestor, all our ancestors, and one particular wise man in our histories. Cullen, the cunning man, the shaman, the grandfathers. He is our ancestor long ago, and in our male line of ancestry. He is our great-grandfather, our progenitor, and the chance we have that we share the same man in our lineage is very high indeed. He is the warrior in his old age, and he is your will and your might when he faces death and defeat. For death is not defeat, for you are here, a long line of his daughters, a long line of his sons. He is in your genetics, whether you have children or not. And he takes you back to the primordial ancestors, back through warriors and clans and emigrations and tribes, meeting and loving and parting and meeting again. This line is ancient, and we are all part of someone's. She is the darkness, the time of gestation, the womb of the mother. She is as old as the dragons that sleep in the earth, and as wise as serpents beneath her crinkled skin. He and she want to teach you as you walk through the autumn landscape, where the berries are ripe and the mushrooms are bursting from the wet and rotten floor of the forest. How to take from the land, and you shall survive. This wisdom she wants to pass on. It is an instinctual knowledge passed through many generations, but in danger of being forgotten. He knows the ways of protecting the tribes through winter and navigating the time of death. If you listen carefully, you can hear him calling you to come to his cave and learn how to build a fire, how to kill animals and take off their skins to keep yourself warm. She tells you how to harvest and store, preserve, how to plan for the future and delay gratification in the way of the older, wiser ones, to gather enough to ride out the hard times, but not to be wasteful or hoard too much, to be free when the time comes. There is an art to tending this fire, not to smother the flames with too much fuel, not to allow it to dwindle till it goes out. And this element and ourselves have kept the connection that has allowed us to survive. Once we were very dependent on fire, and on those who passed on the knowledge to the younger generations. Within caves we may find that we can still sense the spirit of this old wild man. He still dwells deep within us like a shadow in the darkness, seen with our spiritual eyes when the light is too dark for our earthly ones. He guards the entrance to her. Hers is the imprint of life imprinted on the cold, dead rocks, and the indwelling spirits, part returned to nature, and a force of immense strength, hidden deep within the underworld, the shadow world of our DNA and our collective unconscious. The use of these caves for shelter goes back to the Paleolithic, and perhaps it still reminds us of our vulnerability to nature. These sacred places have often been places of respect and sometimes fear. The cave is the entrance to the womb of our mother, and it is here that we hope she would protect us in times of need. The Shaman's cave is seen in many cultures, and there are sacred places of rock art the world over, including in Mongolia, the Americas, Australia and Africa, as well as Europe. Although we do not know for certain what the purpose of these places were, we can make a guess that they were seen as sacred or as places of worship, initiation and ceremony. We can speculate that these caves were places of ancestor worship by noting the ritual use of caves in Africa even to this day. One such cave is the Masai Kakia cave in Kenya. These people who are the oldest on the planet can perhaps tell us about how our ancestors understood their world. The name means place for eating and drinking, which would indicate that it is a place for gathering, but the elders of the tribe say that it is much more than a gathering place. It has long been associated with traditional rituals, such as sacrificing bulls, ancestor worship, and fortnight-long feasts. Earlobe-piercing ceremonies were held in the caves, and young boys would spend time in caves before initiations of circumcision were performed in villages. It was also a place of medicine, as this is where the locally gathered herbs were taken to concoct into potions. It is hard to date the paintings on the cave, as some are modern, though some may date back to much later. They are usually depictions of wild animals created from red ochre and celebrating the kill of a hunting expedition. It has been speculated that ancestor worship was the earliest religious expression amongst humans. In many cultures, ancestor worship emphasises the father-son relationship and passing along of knowledge to perform the appropriate rituals and service to the community. These patrilineages are emphasised in Chinese, Taoist, Confucian and Buddhist thought, as well as in Ghana and the Incas and Andean traditions. Such worship was thought to directly affect the descendants' vitality and fortune. It was a common archaic assumption across the world that to neglect the ancestors could result in ill health and other maladies. Caves may also have been places of burial, places of the dead. Recently, a gruesome discovery was made at Gordonstoun in Scotland, the place where Prince Charles went to school. The Bronze Age picks seem to have used the cave for funerary rites, where bodies were left to rot before the bones were removed. This cave overlooking the Moray Firth was thought to have been adorned by skulls of children at the entrance, placed on spikes and left there to rot till their teeth fell out. In many traditions it is dangerous to approach a tomb without the proper authority or to approach a tomb at night. Perhaps behind this thought is that the idea that the negative spirits would be angered if disturbed by humans. They were responsible for accidents, illnesses and deaths if humans entered their places of habitation. Some ancient cultural similarities exist amongst many of these ancient caves, such as the depictions of cave art. Although cave art is found most famously in France and Spain, and are the earliest uses of art we have discovered, dating back to 40,000 years, and at Castillo in Spain it's the earliest example at the point where humans migrated out of Africa into Europe. Here we find animal paintings, mainly of deer. It has been suggested that these paintings were found deep in the labyrinthine caverns, in the deepest and most inaccessible part of the cave, and that these places were considered more sacred and perhaps less suitable for habitation. Therefore, the thought arose that these were ceremonial places of trance and initiation. The cave paintings themselves are formed on natural rocky outcrops that resemble the shape of the animals depicted, as if the artist had only to paint the outline and to pick the details out. In these visionary states, it may have seemed as if the rock itself had spoken to the artist. The next ancient rock art dates to 30,000 years old and is in Chauvet, France. Here we find depictions not only of animals, but of what also appears to be a woman with her head connected to the head of a bison, and she is the only human represented here. There are also zigzag patterns and dots and dashes, which it has been suggested are similar to other geometric patterns found under the use of certain hallucinogenic plants. Other half-human, half-animal paintings have been found all over the world, such as the sorcerer in the sanctuary in France, who is half deer, half human, and is often seen as a Paleolithic shaman. There are many more of these hybrids, I only mention a few. In the darkness of these caves, perhaps we hear without inner ears and see without inner eyes. Here we are seeing beyond our senses. The Kogi are known to take their special chosen children away from their mothers at a very young age and raise them in complete darkness for the first 7 years of their life. For whatever reason, caves have been held as sacred to our earliest ancestors. In A Descent into the Cave, a dynamic relationship between cave art and depth psychology, Dr. Ilse Vickers writes, "In these depictions of animals, bulls, bison, etc., we are reminded of the antique Mithraic cult, like the Eleusinian and Dionysian mysteries. Here the bull, due to its inordinate superhuman strength, played such a central role. As the super-tutelary animal, the bull, as in so many other myths, represents the primordial, eternal forces of creation. In the underground Mithraic sanctuaries, there is always a chamber at the far end in which we find the tauroctony, an image of the god slaying a bull. Belief was that the sacrificial death of the bull would cause the rebirth of nature. I would suggest that the bull-bison paintings of the Paleolithic temples are analogous to the Mithraic tauroctony, and that they are able to be understood as incantations to the bison, the animal divinity who sacrificed his blood and strength to the hunters. By killing and partaking of the bison, man was transformed. He literally and metaphorically transcended his human limitations and became the bison god. These deep symbolic passages and rites, which may have been seasonally directed, if we subscribe to them being shamanic in nature, as such will always remain a mystery, especially as we know nothing about them. But they were performed in underground temples, and they speak in a deeply archetypal manner through our subconscious. Here we are also reminded of the half-man, half-bull Minotaur, or the bull-headed Apis of the Egyptians. Although we cannot know whether these places often called shamanic were in fact, we can look to Mongolia, where cave art has also been found, dating to the Paleolithic 20,000 to 30,000 BCE. And this discovery, which has paintings unlike any other found in Mongolia, does prove that rock art also existed in the heart of Asia. The Khoit-Senka caves depict animals painted in red, such as bulls, ibex, mouflons, gazelles, camels, elephants, ostriches, snakes, and also, unusually, trees. It would indicate that Mongolian shamanism, which may have its roots in the Paleolithic, also held a reverence for these sacred caves. The most sacred place of the Mongolian shamans in the Northern Hemisphere is Pekan Island in Lake Baikal. Traditional rites are still performed here, and in history it was the last stronghold of the northern shamans, hiding from Genghis Khan, and later from Buddhism's spread into northern Mongolia. Shaman's Rock, sometimes also called Shamanka Rock, in Lake Baikal, is a stone temple comprised of white marble, granite and quartz. It was a traditionally feared site and only a shaman could approach it. If this couldn't be avoided, it was tradition to cover the horse's hooves in felt and leather, so as not to disturb the Lord of Baikal who dwelt there. Buryats believed the Erzin, Buryat for deity, the Lord of Baikal, lived in the cave at Shaman's Rock. According to local villagers, the cave was visited by shamans who settled in ancient Siberia. Rituals are still performed to this day at the cave by pagan priests, and these are associated with cleansing ancestral karma and removing curses. If we think of our ancestors as of the earth, we see that these gifts that our ancestors gave us are gifts of survival, gifts of strength, and we reach out for these at this time. If we think of our ancestors being the earth, then we honour and respect the earth, just as we would our grandfathers and grandmothers, our great uncles and aunties, and all our kind spread across the world, and all our roots. When we give these gifts, They are inherited gifts of their survival, the knowledge they pass down to us of how to take what we need to survive. In this nature do I wish to enter the shaman's presence, learn from the teachers and share what they have gathered and what they have learned in their wisdom. We should approach them with respect, even trepidation, and we should give them gifts of gratitude